her way of contributing to congregation. So the event that they did was they cooked her recipes. Anybody who was interested in cooking of any age in the congregation met in the synagogue kitchen and cooked her recipes and took down her recipes, and they then served what they had baked, I guess it was baking, for the shul kiddush. And at that kiddush, the service of that kiddush, this woman was honored with an aliyah to the Torah. And everybody who came to the service, I think, was given the recipes that had been baked. So I thought that was an incredible model. The next one was totally different. It was a couple who had made aliyah before the Kom HaMedina, before the State of Israel was founded, and had been vatikim, and had been in the Haganah. And they created a kind of this is your life, where the couple sat on the stage of the auditorium in a living room kind of set with a sofa, and just got to share their experiences. And somebody called in who had been their friend in the Haganah, who was in Israel, and shared his reflections on what they'd accomplished. And they taught their Torah in that way. So that's one example. Second example is something that we do at the Reconstructionist Rabbinical College called On Being an Elder, where we invite distinguished elders to come and reflect on their journeys in aging. And we specifically talk about what is it like to be in later life, and what is it that you're learning, and what are you afraid of, and what is it that you wish you'd known earlier that you know now. And we've been conducting these conversations with our students and faculty and staff and these elders, but also recording them on CD-ROM so that people can have them, hopefully, for the ages. And the final thing is that I heard of one congregation that does intergenerational chavruta. And one of the people actually that we included in our On Being an Elder was a founder of the Reconstructionist movement. His name was Judge Bill Melman, Zichrono Livracha. And when he was extremely old and frail, but extremely intellectually vigorous, the rabbi would come over and study Torah, and various congregants would come over and study the Parsha with him every week in his apartment because he couldn't leave routinely. So I wanted to suggest those models of intergenerational Torah study. And then finally, I want to suggest that frail elders definitely can be involved in Talmud Torah as well, in the models that I suggested, such as bringing the learning to them, but also thinking about accessibility. It may be as simple as the lighting in the room, or the size of the font on the page, or it may have to do with the time of day that the opportunity is made available, or transportation, all the things you can obviously think about. And here I just want to mention an incredible program in New York called the University Without Walls, which is a project of Dorot, where they offer 150 courses by conference call on the telephone. And the courses are not all Jewish. Some of them are just sort of general studies. A museum docent shares something about an exhibit at a museum. They could be, philosophy, but some of them are Jewish studies courses, and some of them are Jewish celebration experiences. The one that touches me the most is a call before Yontif, when they do a virtual cemetery visit for people who are not able to get to the cemetery. So people get to talk about what graves they would be visiting and what that would mean to them. And as an aside, that's largely aimed toward homebound frail elders, but it turns out that the telephone conference call is a great modality for reaching caregivers of elders who are too busy to come out to a support group or to avail themselves of a lot of the life of the community, but who might be able to call into a conference call for a support group or for a class to enrich himself or herself while at lunch break or while sitting by mom's bed. So it's a really promising thing to think about technology in that way. So that's Torah. Second thing is avodah. We need to make a spiritual connection in life, and later life can be a time for really deepening, as we said before. And what I hope is that we can make the worship life of the community relevant to those who are not in the stage of raising young children, but who are in other stages of life. Recently it was suggested to me, by the way, that maybe the common cause is between adults without children, without young children at home, regardless of their age. We tend to think about, let's group elder adults together, or let's group the young singles, but maybe there are other points of connection. I want to share with you another text, if I can find it. If you lose the Torah, you're in trouble. Here it is. Okay, so this is a very interesting text. Abravanel reflects on the Jubilee and suggests that we can think about our lifespan in terms of the 70, in terms of that 50 years, that cycle. If you think about the ideal Jewish lifespan, which thank God we're going way beyond, but if you think about in those days, the lifespan of 70. So you spend 10 years as a youth, 50 years working, and another 10 years reflecting in spiritual life. And it's an interesting model. He says, in this time, Vayikra dror ba'aretz, shehaguf yeh chofshi, ubein chorin mikol amalo, ulechach karu yovel. So proclaim liberty for the land. Your body should be liberated from having to be engaged in work. And this is what we mean by Jubilee. Ve'ein ra'ui la'adam b'yamim hahem ki'im, and there's nothing more fitting for the person at that stage of life, sheyishmor et nafsho v'yachin seida ledarko, that the person should take care of his or her soul and prepare provisions for the journey, which I think is a beautiful image for what is the spiritual work of the second half of life. The journey being, I assume, the journey toward our own life's end and legacy and beyond. So I want to just mention a couple of things with regard to avodah. The first that really could take its root here in Los Angeles, and I say it with profound reverence for the memory of Savina Tuval, who showed us in her Simchat Chochmah ritual the idea that we can take hold of the passages of the second half of life and find rituals and invent rituals that are Jewishly grounded and can hallow those moments. There are so many transitions in the second half of life that have no traditional marker, whether it's retirement. Actually, Rabbi Paul Citron, who's in San Diego now, created a ritual called Av and Aim Eitzah, becoming of the age of counsel. That was for people who were approaching that stage of their lives. Becoming a grandparent or great-grandparent, moves, losses, gains, being a caregiver. The caregiver is often the least acknowledged person. I'm sure that you all have occasion to accompany people who are doing family caregiving a lot. But one of the sort of perverse things about being a family caregiver is that you're carrying this weight, and most people have no idea. It's an invisible burden. You know, you lose somebody, you've got kriya, but you're caring for somebody in your community or long distance, and people don't even know. I recently did a workshop on spirituality and aging for a department of Temple University that's connected to aging. And the staff there were about 15 people, and as we went around and talked about issues of spirituality and aging, quite a number raised experiences that they had had in caring for parents or in-laws or grandparents. And it was material that those people who worked together every day had no idea was going on in each other's lives. I have a cousin who was caring for her mother-in-law who had a stroke and had become really impaired and was in a nursing home. And I saw her one day and I said, how's it going with Anne? And she said, it's the same. There's nothing to tell. There's nothing different. And I realized, A, I had asked the wrong question. I should have been asking, how is it for you? To be going to this place that you dread going because you're going to encounter what feels like the shell of the woman that you've loved, and where you're going to feel completely futile and feel completely powerless. How is that for you? That would have been a good question. I didn't ask that question. But the other thing that I thought about is that she didn't feel that her experience was relevant or valid to even be shared in a conversation. So we can think about how do we use the ritual life of the congregation to mark these passages and these experiences related to the second half of life. In the shul to which I belong, we did a very small thing, which is on Rosh Hashanah, we do a Misha Berach for people who've encountered illness in the past year, and those people stand up and receive a Misha Berach. We do a Misha Berach for people who've cared for someone in their family who's encountered illness in the past year. And those people stand up for those few moments and are acknowledged for the pekalitzurs that they're carrying all the time. And then I also invite people who've cared professionally for those who've encountered illness and brokenness. And I have to tell you, for me, seeing my own personal physician stand up and get acknowledgement spiritually for what he sees every day was really kind of powerful. In the ritual life of the congregation, we know that there's great solace for elders to connect to the sense of continuity in our worship life. And I mention this because it's also incredibly challenging. This is a point where when I've spoken to congregational rabbis, I tend to get a lot of challenge, because on the one hand, there are those for whom the continuity of the way things have been liturgically and ritually is incredibly precious. And on the other hand, it needs to be balanced with the community's need to grow and develop ritually and liturgically. So I just want to name that tension and say that it's real. And my experience in working, sharing religious life with very old people is that they were a lot more open than people gave them credit for. So if there's some balance of the familiar and the unfamiliar and some COVID paid to the way things have been, I think that people can stretch and grow and are actually excited about innovation as well. Last thing to say about the life of avodah is that people need to have access to the life of avodah even if they're frail. And my work as a chaplain has shown me how completely transformative the life of avodah can be for those who are in institutions, for those who are contending with physical frailty and cognitive frailty. And it's as if the ritual is the thing that can touch the part that's still whole when so much else is broken. So I wanted to say that by way of a slight commercial to just tell you about a resource that Hiddur has created for Jewish elders who are in largely non-Jewish nursing homes, assisted living facilities, and retirement communities. We've created kits called Sacred Seasons Celebration Kits for Shabbat, Hanukkah, and Pesach to enable Jewish people who are in a place where the Jewish community often doesn't get to still connect to Jewish life, led by someone who may know nothing about Judaism. The idea of Sacred Seasons is that theoretically everything is here that someone would need to lead a celebration of Shabbat or Hanukkah or Pesach with elders, so that they wouldn't require any previous knowledge. So there's description of what is this observance, where does it come from, what do you need to do it, step-by-step instructions, master copies of large type handouts with Hebrew, English, and transliteration for the participants, and a CD recording with all the songs and blessings.
How do we get one of those?
No.
Get lots of those.
You can go to Hiddur.org, or you can go to sacredseasons.org, and you can download the kits, the printed material for free, and the accompanying CD recording you can order for $5 shipping and handling. I will tell you that we're learning, we have been in the process of disseminating this resource since April.